Hey guys, myself Ankita. In this video, we shall see another simple problem on LeetCode. Count elements with strictly smaller than and greater elements. So the given question is, given an integer array nums, return the number of elements that have both a strictly smaller and a strictly greater element appearing nums. What the given questions tell is that if we are given an array called 1, 2, 3, 4, uh, let's just for an example take the sorted array. Okay, you can see this 2 has strictly smaller element 1 and strictly greater element 3 and 4. So 2 is considered. Next coming to 3, it has strictly smaller element 1, 2 and strictly greater element 4. So even this is considered. But when it comes to 1 and 4, 1 has strictly greater element 2, 3, 4, either 2 or 3 or 4, but it doesn't have any smaller element. So that's why this is not considered. And even the last element also 4. This has strictly smaller elements like 1, 2, 3, but doesn't have a greater element than 4. Even so, even if this is discarded. So our task is to find the number of elements that have strictly smaller element and strictly greater element. So what does it actually mean is that if you're given an array like in shuffle format 3, 2, 1, 4, um, once you sort them, like if you sort these arrays as 1, 2, 3, 4. Why are we sorting is the elements, the array will contain elements, right? The smallest element and largest element. Except those two elements, all the elements will have either strictly greater number or strictly smaller number. So that is for sure. So if in this case, to find the smallest and greatest element, what do we do is we convert the array and we sort it using arrays.sort function. So once you sort using arrays.sort function, you will get this. So that easily you can find the smallest and the largest element. Smallest element will be the beginning of the array and largest element will be at the end of the array. So except these two elements, find the count of the middle elements. 2 and 3 here. Here it is. So it should be 2 is the answer. But other cases which we need to handle here is, for example, let's say one of the test cases which I encountered while solving the problem is minus 71 comma minus 71 comma 40 comma 93 comma minus 71. So in this example, let me take other color. Yeah. So in this example, we could see the smallest element is minus 71. The smallest and greatest element would be, so greatest element would be 93. So except these two elements, whichever element is present in the array, they have strictly smaller, strictly larger um, element. So in this case 71, 71, 71 and 93, except that only 40 we have. So 1 would be the answer. So once you sort the arrays, like you will get it as minus 71, comma minus 71, comma minus 71, then 40, comma 93. So while running the loop, we'll check for the negation conditions, like we will start from I equal to 1 till I equal to nums dot length minus 1. Why? Because we will be neglecting the very first and last element, because that is for sure we will not consider them for the count, right? They won't have strictly smaller element in the first case, and here in this case they will not have strictly smaller element. Even for the last array element, it will not have strictly large element. So these four are neglected for sure. So this is not considered in the loop. That's why the loop will start from I equal to 1 till nums dot length minus 1. Length minus 1, I mean lesser than. If it is lesser than or equal to, then nums dot length minus 2. Because nums dot length minus 1 will be pointing to this um, element, right? So if you give lesser than, it will consider till this element. If you give nums lesser than or equal to, means till here you have to give. This is nums dot length minus 1, this is nums dot length minus 2. So this is the condition which we need to give. So For now, we'll consider nums dot length minus 1 lesser than nums dot length minus 1. So I. These are the conditions. And one more thing you can check here is 71, 71, this minus 71. Do these elements also have a strictly smaller element? Because this is equal to the very first element is 1. So even these elements doesn't have a strictly smaller element. That's why these also won't consider for the count. So that's why in the loop we have to check if nums of I, whatever you have, if they are equal to nums of 0. So here 71, 71 are equal to nums of 0. In that case, just to increment I plus plus, we will be using for loop. Okay. Or what if we have 93, comma 93? In this case, this is neglected, but here it is this is the last element, right? So in this case, 93 is equal to last element. So again nums of I is equal to nums of I, nums of nums dot length minus 1. That is the last element. Again, you perform the I plus plus. So you give a or condition, either this or this. If any one of them becomes true, you just increment the I. Otherwise, what you have to do? Otherwise, else part will be we will have count value, right? So count plus plus would be that. So that is for 40 here in this case, because 71 minus 71 minus 70 equal to first element and 93 equal to last element. So we neglect all those things, and whichever element remaining in the middle, we just increment count value, and I also plus plus we will do. So basically, the logic here is you neglect the first and last element for the iteration. So, and while performing iteration, just check if in case the very first element only occurs many times or very last elements occur many times. In such case, you need to check whether the element is equal to first element or the element is equal to last element. If any one of these cases becomes true, you just increment the I value. You not consider them for the count, because 71 doesn't have a the smallest, strictly smaller element, or 93 doesn't have strictly larger element than 93, because it's equal to the last element itself. So for the further remaining elements, the middle of the whatever it comes, you just increment count value, and I also will be incremented for the next uh, next condition. So int count equal to 0 initially, and int I equal to 1. Because I equal to 1, we are neglecting 0th value. Now while I lesser than nums dot length minus 1. Why minus 1 we are giving? Here we need to neglect the very last element also. And I equal to 1 means first element will be neglected, because they both elements, first and last one, for sure they won't have either strictly small element or strictly greater element. You have to consider them only if they both strictly smaller and greater element. If either of them doesn't have, then you just need to neglect. So here you have to check if nums of I is equal to nums of 0, or nums of I is equal to the last element, that is nothing but nums of nums dot length minus 1. If any one of these cases happens, you just increment I plus plus, else you increment the count value, count plus plus, and I also will be incremented I plus plus. So why am I running the while loop is because if you give the for loop, anyways, yeah, I is gonna increase, but in for this condition, what will you write inside this I plus plus? Nothing you can write. You should keep it empty. So at first we'll check for this condition. If this happens false, true, then just go to the next iteration. Don't go for the else condition itself. That's the reason why am I using while loop. So at last, you just need to return the count value. We shall run this. Yes. Uh, it's something mistake I have done. Mm. I plus plus. I missed the main step itself. At first, what did I tell? Sorting, right? The sorting hasn't been done here. Yeah, that's the first step which you need to do. because without sorting you can't compare it with the previous element directly and say if this is equal to the first element or the last element. So again we will run this. Arrays are sort of nums. Yeah. It's been successfully submitted. If you guys have any doubts, please drop out in the comment section. We'll come up with another video in the next session, and please subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. Keep learning. Thank you.